that's the law of Earth. Like, when I really think about it, and what I really observe is that we have to take life. Like, it's not even an option. Like we're put here, and that is the process. Like, because at the end of the day, we're gonna be taken as well. Like, our life is temporary. So when we look at death as a negative thing, or when we think of as eating living things as negative, that is just a reflection of us not being able to deal with our own mortality, or not being able to confront our own mortality. So in contrast, we try to project that onto other organisms because we don't want to die. We don't want other things to die. But the truth is that I think we were put here, and we exist here to confront that, and to be a part of that, and to have a relationship to that. And the more we deviate from that, the more we get into these ideologies that are pseudo-spiritual, that are, this is the thing that people have to understand, that this spirituality that they've been sold isn't the traditional spirituality. It's a new age interpretation of traditional spirituality. When you're talking about shamanism and plant medicine, and you're talking about all these subjects, they exist within the context of a culture. They exist within the context of an ecology, of a community. They were never meant to be isolated and brought back into this world to be used as products or props for spirituality. So that's the big disconnect that I think people have, is that they think that they take one aspect of a culture that is spiritual, and they bring it back and make it a part of their system. So you have a big crowd of the plant-based vegan community is spiritual, right? They entwine their way of eating to a spiritual component. They say that in order to tap into source and to be highly spiritual, that you have to be plant-based, and then some people say you have to eat raw, and then some people say you have to fast. And the more you abstain, the more that you have a connection with the source, with being spiritual. And the reason that this is highly appealing to people is because most people are so saturated and blocked and just overconsumed with consuming shit. And so when you begin to remove some of those distractions, they start to see themselves in a new light. They start to actually see themselves for who they are once you start to remove distractions. But this does not mean that we're supposed to stay and live in this space. It is merely a tool. And traditional people, indigenous people, they have used this as a tool as well. Fasting and certain cleanses in certain times and periods of their life, this has been a tool that has been used. But what's being pushed today is like a constant, never-ending cleanse. You're never too clean. You can never detox enough. The world is too polluted, and you're too polluted. You're bad by nature, and you have to keep asking for forgiveness from whatever to earn yourself some salvation. And it's just simply a byproduct of being out of tune with the cycles of real life, of nature, and understanding that these things have their place, but they're not supposed to be perpetuated infinitely, and they're not sustainable infinitely. A lot of these things were designed to heal people, to bring people back to themselves, and to remove some of that insulation that doesn't allow people to see their traumas, doesn't allow people to see the places that they've gone wrong, in the things that they've deviated from and come out of balance from. But to push it as an agenda, something that you should embrace for life, and you get stricter and stricter the more you go, it's just out of balance, man. It's out of balance. And coming full circle for me, like being raw, fasting for 40 days, like I was on one of those extremes. Like I for sure did more than most people. Even the people that argue with me here about animal foods, I've probably done more than they have in terms of cleansing, detoxing, fasting, and eating clean. And so when I speak, it's not coming from not knowing anything. It's not coming from just being oblivious to that way of life and thinking. It's coming from having a deep understanding of that lifestyle. It's coming from having embraced that lifestyle for many years, and seeing how that was affecting my worldview, and then going out into the world and like different countries and seeing what actually people were doing, and kind of being humbled in a way, like, oh yeah, they're not eating like people in America. The vegan plant-based movement is like, that's an American thing. That's a cultural, Western cultural, modern phenomenon. That isn't what these people are doing. And if you do see it, it's because it has been brought there by people from this modern culture. So I started to see like, oh, well, who owns these restaurants? Like, who's putting up these vegan restaurants in these foreign countries? Why are these concentration of vegan plant-based restaurants around tourist locations? What are the indigenous people doing? How are they living? It's a completely different thing. So when you start to see that, you start to see like, well, maybe the lifestyle that I thought was trying to connect me back to nature and get me closer to the source was actually a deviation from that. It appeared at face value to be more natural. It appeared to be getting you closer to the source, as people say. But in all actuality, it wasn't. It was just a ploy. It was just a manufactured lifestyle that originated out of disconnection from the earth. So for you to expect to be connected back to the earth through something that originated out of disconnection from the earth, that don't even make sense. And even further, when you go out into the world and you start to actually see and interact with people who live off the land, they have a whole different perspective. They move differently, they eat differently, they think differently, because they're actually having the experience. They're having the experience of what it takes to survive in life and in nature and to thrive. And as a person who does that, it would be ludicrous for you to exempt like a whole kingdom of life, like the animal kingdom, especially when traditionally that's always been revered. Animal foods, organs, have always been revered and highly prized amongst all traditional cultures. Like, that's what they give pregnant women. That's what they give men who are expecting, who are trying to reproduce. During reproduction, these are some of the most prized foods. So when we demonize animal foods, and that's the thing that got us to where we're at, we're just highly inconsiderate, and we're very privileged, and we are entitled when we speak from that perspective, knowing that that's the damn thing that got us here, and that's what sustained us, and that's why we're having this conversation. We have the audacity to be like, oh no, animal foods are bad, like, you shouldn't eat that, it causes mucus and all that shit. These are modern beliefs. This is not traditional knowledge. This is just shit that spreads. It sounds good. Trust me, it sounded real good to me many years ago. It sounds good, and it has some basis in reality. There is truth in all of these things, but the stance that we come at it from is so fucking pretentious and so condescending that we think, and it coming from people who don't even experience nature, and they're trying to tell people who come from live in nature how to eat, and that they're fucking up. Like, you're fucking up by eating animals. You're in the wrong. Like, you're causing mucus. Tell that to the indigenous people who are the most sustainable people on the planet Earth. All these indigenous cultures and tribes, they're the ones who live perpetually in their environment in sustainable harmony. We're the ones that are fucking up, but yeah, we have the audacity to be like, oh yeah, bro, you should eat plant-based because I got this smoothie and I'm like God's gift to earth, and you need to get on my level. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, no, like we are not on no moral high horse to be preaching like this is what's going to save the world, when this is only possible because of what's happened to the world, the extreme displacement of resources and all this shit that allows your diet and lifestyle to exist. The reason you feel comfortable and secure and embracing your lifestyle is because you know that there's a grocery store who's stocking this shit every day. But in the absence of that, what would be your options? In the absence of that, how would you behave? Like, this is crazy, bro. Like, this is such a disrespect and a dishonor to ourselves and to our ancestors and what we came from. And it's just so naive. that's why I don't often say nothing, because I know at some point people will get it, but it's just, you got to acknowledge whether it's just like naive disrespect for what brought us here. So and it's like, at the same time, I understand where people are coming from because they think that when I talk about animal foods, all they picture is cages. All they picture is these factory farm operations, because that's all they've been pushed. That's all they know. When these documentaries show animal derived foods, this is what they show. They show pictures of the CAFO. They show pictures of all this shit. The worst of the worst. Because if I wanted to make an argument against eating plants, that's what I would do too. I would show the immense amount of chemicals that are used, chemical fertilizers that are used in monocropping, the devastation that takes place at a soil level, at an animal level, and at a plant level from these toxic monocropping of plants. I would show the worst of it, right? That's what I would do if I wanted to suppress and attack plant-based. So then over time, people would be like, well, that's where all plants come from. But that's not the reality. We know that not all animals are produced in the way that most people have been programmed to believe that they are. There's cows living here that are raised here that have better life than some people in America. Like, they have ocean views, they're eating fresh grass, beautiful weather, beautiful views, beautiful air, and they have a beautiful life. And they're free range and living their life, and they're adding to the soil. It's much bigger than the little closed off reality that you've been pushed. So that's what I'm trying to open you up. When I speak from animal foods, I'm never speaking from a factory farm perspective. That's what you have to understand. At the basis and foundation of my understanding is sustainability and harmony with the earth. So when people bring that up, I automatically know that their focus is out of balance, because I'm like, of course I'm talking about the best case scenario. Why would I be focused on the worst case scenario? Why would I be pushing the worst case scenario? Like, that's not even something that I come to, because I'm already operating from like, I'm a human. If I want to preserve myself, I got to live in harmony. So when people bring that up, it's like, of course, bro, nobody is out here pushing animal confined feeding operations or factory farming. Nobody's out here saying like, yeah, that's a good idea. When have you heard somebody say that? Like, I've never heard nobody say that. So when people bring that up as a reason to not bring up animal foods, I'm like, no, we're not, because we're going to talk about all the aspects of it. Yes, we know that exists, but let me show you a different version that you haven't heard yet. Let me show you a different perspective that they're not going to show you, because their objective is to demonize animal foods, period. They want to end suffering for life. They want to end pain for life. They want to end struggle. They want to end challenge. And they want to end the things that make life. Basically, they want you to be a homogenized robot who never experiences anything challenging whatsoever. And you think just like everybody else, and you never disrespect or you never challenge anybody. And that's not life. Life comes with the ups and the downs. It comes with the death. It comes with the life, the birth. These are all aspects of life, and we have to embrace all of it. We can't just want the good things, because then the good things, eventually they won't be good anymore. Through relativity is how we experience the true nature of things, is how we experience joy because of moments of hardship. When everything is homogenized, there is nothing. Basically, everything is just the same. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about animal foods. Like, I'm not coming from that perspective of factory farming. I never will, because that's within itself the worst of the worst. Just like if I were to point out the worst of plant-produced foods, I'm not going to take that approach, because at the end of the day, I know that there's a balance to all of this. I know that anything could be done right and sustainably, but it can also be done unsustainably. And it's not about the kingdom of life that it comes from. Eating animal foods doesn't make you any less spiritual. Eating plant foods doesn't make you any more moral or on higher ground than people, because at the end of the day, you're just shopping from a different aisle in the grocery store. That's it. And you just shopping from a different aisle in the grocery store, but at the end of the day, you're still relying on that grocery store. You still allowing yourself to leverage your power to other people outside of you and depending on them. We all are to some extent. It's a process reclaiming that sovereignty, but I'm not going to sit here and act like the solution is just to shop from an aisle in the grocery store when I know it's not. It's the root is a lot deeper than that. And that's what I'm talking about and trying to get people to understand. You can eat plant-based all you want, but that's not the root of the issue. That's not why the world is the way that it is. It's not because people aren't plant-based. No, the world is the way that it is because people have been disconnected from nature, from life, from living in harmony. Being plant-based is just a band-aid, but it's not addressing the root of the issue. So if you say, oh, you eat plant-based to save the planet, okay, cool. But what about when the planet is saved? Are we having a conversation of reintroducing animal foods once the planet is all in good? No, they want to perpetuate and keep going on that path. They want to, once you plant-based and vegan, okay, then comes the slop that they're 3D printing. Okay, then we're not even eating real food anymore. We're just eating laboratory grown food. It's just, it never stops, you know. It never stops. It's just a constant disconnection further and further and further and further from the earth, from reality. And as the grounding force, this is what I'm here to do, is remind people, bro, you on planet Earth. Remember that. Go outside, step on the ground, and look at the ants, look at the bugs, look at the animals, and know that that's where you're at. You're not here to disconnect yourself from that. You're here to be inside of that and be in communion with that and accept everything that comes along with that. Not to try to justify it and be like, oh, maybe we should be but the animals, but my feelings, but my emotions, and the documentary said, and Dr. Sebi said, and this person online said. Bro, you bypassing your own experience in place of what somebody else said. Your own experience, your own nervous system, you're bypassing it just so that you can embrace some ideology that somebody else said. And that's the crazy part about it. When you outsource your reality to somebody else because they sound better and can articulate themselves better, because they put cool pictures and animations and videos, and they put together this documentary that's, you know, so emotional. Like, nah, like, no, go have a real experience. Go have a real experience, and then come and be like, oh, okay, like, it wasn't what I thought I was. Maybe I was being very arrogant in thinking that I had all the answers, because that's what happened to me. I didn't choose to start embracing this lifestyle. I didn't choose to change my mind. It was just life humbled me. Life showed me, like, bro, like, nah, like, you don't have all the answers. Like, check this out. Situation came, boom. You have to adjust, and you have to be flexible and moldable to life and nature, because at the end of the day, you will be presented with situations that don't fit into the box that you've constructed for yourself. You will be presented with times where your ideology will be challenged, and it won't be the savior for your issue or your problem, and you're going to have to grow in that moment and become more and embrace a different way of thinking. And I know a lot of people know that, but they just not ready, just not quite ready to say that. They're just not quite ready to embrace that. Just like I was. I heard this message and I felt this message a long time ago, but I wasn't ready to embrace it. I was just like, yeah, but, you know, but this, but that. But at the end of the day, I started thinking, what is the root? Unless we go to the root, we can put band-aids on all this. You know, we can try to remedy it for the moment. But at the root of it is like we've been disconnected from the source. We've been disconnected from that piece of ourselves that gives us life and having that relationship. So it don't matter what kingdom we eat from. It don't matter what part of the grocery store we eat from. If we don't have that connection, we're just going to keep perpetuating the same destruction that we keep perpetuating. We're going to create systems that don't take into account the environment. We're going to create legislation. We're going to create hierarchies that destroy and decimate the earth. That because there's no connection to that. So, and if you connect to the earth, it won't matter what kingdoms you eat from. It won't matter, because you will be so in harmony with the earth and your environment that you won't do anything out of line to destroy that disharmony. So at the root of it is just our disconnection. So you can eat however you want to eat, but if you don't have a connection to the earth and your own nature and human nature, it don't matter. You're still going to perpetuate imbalance. And that's the moral of the story, I guess I should say. So let me go back and read some of these comments. Yeah, I guess the other one, it was good, but it was meant for whoever it was meant. So let me see. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I think that it is very disrespectful. I feel like we've been given an immense gift, an opportunity to exist here, but we keep dishonoring it because of our own mind. Like, we have this powerful mind and brain that allows us to think complex ideas, but it's like almost beginning to work against us, to where we have too many thoughts, too many ideas, and we don't execute enough. We don't have enough practical experiences that just allow us to know something through experience. We're starting to supposedly know or to understand life through information and not experience. And the thing about the internet is that the information can be skewed, it can be distorted, it can be biased, it can be all this. So we start to live our life through that. It creates a whole different human experience. Yeah, so Everlast 55 said most live so far away from nature, so in that environment they don't have to murder. In nature, it's a different reality. See, and even that word, is used, murder. Like, they could say hunt, harvest, or whatever, but intentionally, like, people use the worst words. So they'll say like rape, murder. Like, they intentionally wanna paint a perspective of that act to be bad. It's not even coming from a neutral place. They're choosing the words that they know will be received the worst because they're trying to make that. And for all intents, because murder is like you just killing somebody. You're not, or you're killing something, and you're not really taking it for food, or you're not utilizing for sustenance, for shelter, for clothing. You're just killing it for no reason. So when people say that word murder to refer to like hunting an animal or harvesting an animal from the environment, it's a whole different context than what traditionally people have done, and how it should be done respectfully. When we're harvesting, is for a reason. Murder is just to fucking kill out of spite or out of emotion. We're not moving from that place. So to use that word indicates to me that your perspective of it is already, it's not neutral. It's already skewed to one direction. And until you reprogram that part of yourself, you're just going to keep thinking that this is wrong, and you're going to keep living in that lie, which is fine if you want to. But for me, it was about embracing, truth in all its ways, whatever that means. Lena Hitova said, plants can read our minds. They're freaking psychic. FDA has been using plants as natural lie detection. Yeah, I mean, of course, life is more intricate and complex than we give it credit for. And it's easy to see the life in things that are animate, things that show emotion, things that move like us. But it really takes a subtle analysis and connection to plants and these kind of organisms that are more subtle to be able to see the life in that, to be able to see the changes in that. Like, we just stripped the tree, we debarked it because it's one of these trees that grows out of control and then just falls on the property. And slowly, this tree has been dying. It's the craziest thing to me. Like, trees don't die like an animal would. Like, an animal might die in a couple minutes. You could see it. It goes from animated to not animated. But for the tree, it's been so subtle. Like, what's been happening, it's been starting to drop more and more leaves. Consistently, just dropping more and more leaves. It's dropping leaves right now. As I speak, I can just see them dropping. And it's such a slow process. So for me to be like, oh, that's not the same because it's happening on a different timeline relative to how I experience life, it's just not accurate, Yeah, for sure. We're all on a journey, I'm just sharing my experience, my perspective. Twan the Muse says, so why are you not fighting to take down the cages so it can be balanced? Because I don't focus on what I don't want. I'm focused on what I do want. I'm focused on promoting the things in the world that I want to see. When you give something energy, whether you want it or not, you're just feeding it. You're just feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. I'm focused on the awareness of what people don't talk about, what people aren't much aware of, which is, sustainable ways of animal foods, a holistic perspective of looking at the world as a food, as having this exchange with us, and not just limiting ourselves to what is being promoted in modern times. I'm just focused on what I want. Everybody knows that we don't want that. There's plenty of information out there about these operations and why they're not beneficial and what the detriments are. That's not what I'm here for. That already exists. I'm here to enlighten something that gets a lot less spotlight, and talk about topics and subjects that aren't well promoted or articulated in these platforms. Mira Lou says, I think the most important thing for me is getting animals from reliable sources. And really, it should be food in general from reliable sources. So there's a disconnect where, we think that way about animals, and it's good because animals do bioaccumulate. So you're getting a lot of more nutrition, but you're also getting the potential for different environmental toxins and stuff like that. So I do think that sourcing gets more focused when it comes to animal foods, but just food in general. I think it's things that we should be sourcing locally and from sustainable operations. Yeah. Antosia Moon said, agreed, long life does not mean good life. Yeah, and I think that's another topic, but it comes from the same place. But basically, humans are trying to extend life, but they're not thinking about quality. They're just thinking about quantity of years. Because of science. Right, exactly. Lady Tia said, I'm definitely in a transition in life, and I'm so confused in my life. After hearing this, I believe it's because I'm holding on instead of adjusting and readjusting. It's interesting that we will even... Yeah. Naomi Elliott said, this reminds me of the transhumanism movement and how by its very existence is so far removed from our biological reality. A lot of vegans are transhumanists without realizing, so afraid of death. Yeah, it's crazy. And that's how I look at it too. That's been my observation of that movement and culture, and where it's going to is just like you said, that transhumanism, because the further you disconnect from nature and you start to get these ideas of 3D printed food, uploading your consciousness, and that's all in the sci-fi realm, traveling to other planets and stuff. It's just further pushing you literally away from the earth. This idea of leaving earth and inhabiting other planets. It all comes from the same place, just not wanting to be here. I just don't want to be a part of earth. And on my story, that's what I posted, this quote, that there's a movement that is seeking to liberate people from their human nature. But what I'm talking about is liberating people to express their human nature. See, so you have to know the difference. One is trying to push you away and suppress yourself from who you truly are. The other one is trying to pave the way to allow you to be and express who you truly are. I'm gonna ignore that. Yeah, we'll go live, Twan, but I gotta go because we gotta go out. We got some stuff to do. But I just wanted to get on here and just reiterate some of the points, even though I just went on a completely different tangent. Nonetheless, I think it was necessary. And yeah, man, I appreciate you guys for coming in the room, staying alive, and I hope, whoever got to hear the first one heard it and received what was said. All right, y'all. Stay balanced.